Welcome to IDRA's EAC South Technical Assistance web package on diversifying the teaching field. This is Chapter 4, Analyzing the Data and Implications for Policy and Practice. Several studies show that teacher diversity benefits students in several ways, including higher expectations, better achievement, lower absenteeism, fewer suspensions, a positive role model effect, and it can help break down stereotypes. In this chapter, we will increase knowledge of student and teacher diversity, as well as review state-level data within the IDRA EAC South Region 2. Additionally, we will review data collection at the district level and discuss implications for policy and practice. When examining the diversity gap in 1987 for states in Federal Region 2, we can see that every state had much higher percentages of students of color than teachers of color. When we examine the data for 2011-2012, we see that the diversity gap remained high among most states. Tennessee has among the smallest student-teacher demographic diversity gap in the region at 21.8%, though it also has the lowest percentage of students of color. And as shown in this data chart, its diversity gap has nearly tripled over the past 25 years. South Carolina's diversity gap has been relatively stable, as the percentage of teachers of color and students of color remain relatively the same. The diversity gap has increased in all IDRA EAC South states. Between 1987 and 2011, South Carolina has the smallest increase at 1%, and Virginia has the largest percentage point increase at 179.4%. As we look at high school graduation rates, we begin to see how the diversity gap impacts the number of students of color in the Educator pipeline. In the 2003-2004 school year, Hispanic, Native American, and Black students graduated at lower rates than their white and Asian counterparts. By 2011-2012, Hispanic, Black, and Native American students had higher graduation rates. However, there was still a considerable difference in graduation rates when compared to white and Asian students. If schools fail to graduate the largest segment of their students of color from high school, these students are statistically less likely to attend college or become teachers. States and school districts can and should monitor and analyze graduation data to look for trends over time. For example, when looking at state graduation rates of Mississippi in 2004, we can see that 80% of Asian Pacific Islanders and 67% of whites graduated, while students of color continue to struggle. In this chart, we see that only 58% of Black, 52% of Hispanic, and 32% of Native American students graduated from high school. When using 2012 data, we see that all ethnic and racial groups increased their graduation rates in Mississippi. Hispanics made the biggest gains, graduating at almost the same rate as Asian Pacific Islanders and white students, whereas Native American and Black students showed smaller gains. States and school districts should analyze their graduation rates to see if this first critical step of the teacher pipeline is impacted. The number and percent of students of color graduating with a bachelor's degree also impacts the teacher pipeline. When looking at data from 1980 to 1981, you can see a large disparity in the percentage of bachelor's degrees conferred to students of color. 89% of all bachelor's degrees in 1980-1981 were awarded to whites. The remaining 11% were earned by students of color. According to NCES data, we see that by 2011-2012, students of color comprised a larger percentage of students earning a bachelor's degree. While graduating rates among students of color have improved, we can still see that the disparity of completion rates between whites and students of color remains large. States should also examine how each critical step in the teacher pipeline is affected and what state policies are driving these outcomes. As you can see in this graphic from the U.S. Department of Education, diversity diminishes at each point in the educator pipeline, from post-secondary enrollment to college completion to teacher retention. This chart shows the percentage distribution of bachelor's degrees by major and by race ethnicities in both the 2000 and 2012 school years. We see that there are fewer students of all races and ethnicities pursuing education degrees. Consequently, the pool of students of color becomes even smaller, thus widening the gap in the percentage of bachelor's degrees conferred in education to teachers of color, and this does not change significantly over time. Overall, college students of all races are choosing not to major in education, despite the growing need for educators. We know from the research that teachers who are prepared through traditional teacher education programs facilitated through institutes of higher education tend to be more confident and have more clinical experience before graduating. This figure shows that white students are still the largest cohort most likely to graduate from a traditional collegiate teacher preparation program. The research also shows that there are a disproportionate number of teachers from alternative certification programs working in schools with higher populations of students designated with a lower socioeconomic status. Proactive states and school districts will want to know what they can do to improve the number of well-prepared teacher candidates as well as the diversity of that teacher candidate pool in their educator pipeline. Let's look at a few examples of how a district can collect and review district-level data to improve these metrics. We strongly recommend that schools and districts analyze their data across multiple indicators, including but not limited to date of hire, recruitment pathway, degree type or preparation program, certifying organization or institute of higher learning, as well as the candidate's ethnicity, race, and gender. Schools and districts can analyze their teacher data to determine which schools within their district have greater teacher diversity, as well as the preparation backgrounds of those teachers. Districts can also collect and review the patterns of hiring and retention at each campus over time, as shown in this chart. Schools and districts should monitor and analyze the data to see how many teachers they hire from alternative education certification programs versus how many come from traditional programs facilitated by institutes of higher education. Collecting this data will aid districts wanting to determine which campuses are hiring teachers from alternative certification programs, ultimately ensuring that campuses have a good ratio of alternative certification teachers and teachers certified through traditional collegiate teacher licensure programs at every campus. So now that we see the data for the diversity gap and know how schools and districts can analyze teacher diversity in their own settings, let's talk about how districts can attract and retain teachers of color. We encourage districts to attend recruitment fairs at minority-serving institutions. Students who attend MSIs are more likely to graduate with a bachelor's degree from a school or department of education compared to students of color who attend predominantly white institutions. MSIs produce more teacher candidates of color than any other colleges. Districts should maintain data of their attendance at various recruitment fairs. Knowing the location and institution where they found their teacher candidates can help districts improve teacher quality and diversity over time. Districts should also collect data about their teachers as permitted by state and federal law. The data should then be disaggregated by race, ethnicity, type of teacher preparation program, and the name of the institution or program. To attract teachers of schools and districts can offer various types of incentives, including relocation incentives, tuition reimbursement, loan forgiveness, longevity rewards, and a strong mentoring program. Districts should maintain annual data about the allocation of these types of resources and the impact it is making. Schools and districts can use survey data to help retain teachers. Climate surveys are useful because they help teachers identify what they appreciate about their work environment, as well as the things that can be improved. This is a proactive approach. Exit surveys can be used to identify weaknesses. As John B. King Jr., former Secretary of Education, stated, Without question, when the majority of students in public schools are students of color, and only 18% of our teachers are teachers of color, we have an urgent need to act. By making conscientious teacher recruitment and retainment decisions, and by collecting and analyzing data to inform policy and practice, we can act. Thank you for watching, and please visit our website for more information and in-depth resources.